Have you ever felt like you built something incredible, only to watch someone else erase your name from the story? Here's the truth most people never hear. Clarity Core wasn't born in a boardroom. It was built during sleepless nights, fueled by anger and code, after a hospital error nearly killed my grandmother. And the real twist? It wasn't a competitor who tried to steal it. It was my own family. I'm Jenna Blake. I wrote every line of Clarity Core's core engine at 2 a.m. in a studio apartment, living off cafeteria leftovers. No investors, no hype, just conviction. And in this video, I'll show you exactly how I reclaimed my power, how I protected my IP in 14 days, forced a boardroom vote, and took back my role as CEO, even after they rewrote the story without me. Real story. I was 23 when I lost the title I created, but I filed the provisional patent, looped in clients, and made it legally undeniable. Clarity Core runs on what I built. If you're watching this after someone's already taken credit for your work, don't wait another day. Give me 5 minutes. I'll show you how to stop asking for permission and start protecting what's yours. Before we dive into the story, I'd love to get to know you a little better. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. That way, I can send you a special shout out. Now let's begin our story together. They thought Brooke was the future of our family, but it was my late nights, not her charm, that saved lives. I still remember the torn page tucked beneath my socks, a scrap of college-ruled paper stained with old coffee, corners frayed. It held the first line of code I ever wrote for Clarity Core. Half-formed logic, scribbled variables, a timestamp error I couldn't fix back then, but to me it was sacred, a relic from the night everything changed, when Grandma June almost died because the hospital's system missed a drug interaction. I'd sat by her bed, helpless and furious, watching nurses scramble to correct a machine's mistake. That night became my compass. In 2016, I was 23 and living in a cramped studio in Austin, Texas. The walls were covered in whiteboard streaks and sticky notes, my mattress folded in half so I could squeeze a desk by the window. The city was all heat and ambition. Tech bros, cold brew cafes, scooters everywhere. But I was alone, fighting bugs at 2 a.m., living off cafeteria leftovers from the university where I'd audited night classes. I didn't have investors or degrees or even proper health insurance. What I had was the certainty that Grandma wasn't a fluke. The system was broken, and I could fix it. My parents didn't agree, not openly, but their silence said enough. Dad, ever the spreadsheet realist, once told me, "Startups are fine, but maybe come back when you've got traction." Mom, polished in pearls and polite disappointment, suggested I join Brooke's company instead. "She already has funding and staff, and you're so good with computers, honey." I nodded, smiled, bit my tongue. I'd grown used to being the family's second draft. Brooke, 3 years older, had always been the glossy one. Debate captain, MBA fast tracker, the kind of woman who knew the right wine to pair with salmon and never forgot a birthday. While she toured co-working spaces with glass walls and kombucha on tap, I was crashing at my keyboard, trying to scrape together enough to pay both rent and server hosting. I pitched Clarity Core to anyone who would listen, early-stage investors, grad students, even my TA from systems theory. Most smiled, some nodded, all passed. One told me, "You're too early." Another said, "Your model needs a Brooke." Still, I built. I took out a personal loan under my name and another under my middle name, bought secondhand monitors, ate rice and beans for a month straight, and when I finally had a minimum viable product, I sent it everywhere. Only one place replied, a small community clinic on the east side. Dr. Simmons was their director, a quiet man who used short emails and signed them with just his first initial. "We'll try it for 2 weeks," he wrote. "No guarantees." I didn't need guarantees. I needed a start. The first week, nothing happened. I checked logs obsessively, staring at code until my vision blurred. Then a ping. The alert system had flagged a dosage conflict. Nothing fatal, just enough to matter. A nurse caught it, fixed it. emailed me to say, "Hey, your thing might have saved us a lawsuit." More reports trickled in. A pharmacist emailed, then a surgeon, then another nurse. Their notes weren't long, but they were specific. "Your platform caught something we missed." It flagged a combo I'd overlooked. "We reran the dosage because of your system. Good call." I printed the messages and taped them above my desk. My walls were becoming a mosaic of validation. Then came the one from Dr. Simmons. "You helped us prevent a real tragedy today." I read that line 5 times. My hand trembled holding the paper. This wasn't just theory anymore. It wasn't a side project or a pipe dream. It was real. I wasn't asking for permission to matter. I was proving that I already did. That night, I bought a desk chair, a real one. Not new, but padded. Craigslist, $40, picked up from a grad student who'd given up on her thesis. I carried it up 3 flights of stairs and sat in it like I was arriving somewhere. It creaked when I leaned back, but I didn't mind. It was mine. Above the monitor, I stuck a yellow note I'd written months ago. "Build for the people who aren't in the room." It wasn't a slogan. It was my contract. I was halfway through debugging a timestamp glitch, another late night, another microwaved cup of ramen, when my phone buzzed. A message from Mom. "Brooke's coming to town. She wants to help with your business. Be open-minded." I reread it twice. Brooke. Help. Business. The ramen cooled in my hand as the words settled. Suddenly, the apartment felt smaller. Or maybe it was me, bracing for a storm disguised as a favor. I used to think miscredit was an honest mistake, until I watched my own sister accept applause for work she never touched. It started small. A networking brunch, back in early spring, cheap coffee, too many blazers, and name tags that barely stuck. I was standing by the exit, ready to escape, when I overheard Brooke introducing herself. "Co-founder of Clarity Core," she said, with that confident smile that made people lean in. I didn't correct her. I just blinked, then sipped my lukewarm coffee and walked out. But something tightened behind my ribs. By 2018, Clarity Core had moved into a WeWork space in downtown Austin. It wasn't glamorous, but we had a fridge full of oat milk and cold brew and enough whiteboards to sketch 1,000 versions of the same workflow. I lived in jeans and old startup tees. Brooke wore heels and spoke in TED Talk cadence. She'd moved back to town and offered to help with branding. I agreed. Maybe some polish would help with investor decks. I didn't realize she'd rewrite the entire story. One afternoon, I opened the pitch deck to rehearse for a demo call and found a new slide, Our Founders. It featured 2 headshots, hers and mine, side by side, except mine had a typo in the title, Product Engineer. Hers read, Visionary Strategist. I hovered over the slide with my mouse for a long time. Didn't delete it. Didn't speak up. When I brought it up to Brooke the next morning, she waved it off. "It's just optics. Investors like a dual story. Balance, right? Technical and strategic." Then she changed the subject to colors. "I think we should go with navy and sage. It says trustworthy innovation." The intern from UT started shadowing me that week. After her first tour, she asked where Brooke's office was. I laughed, then realized she wasn't joking. That Thursday, Brooke hosted a coffee chat with some angel investors and didn't loop me in. Raj, my lead engineer, texted me later. "Didn't know we were raising again. All good." I typed, "Apparently so," and left it at that. The subtle shifts kept coming. She took the stage at a health tech panel and said, "When I started Clarity Core, I knew we'd disrupt something. My name wasn't mentioned." The next day, a VC emailed us both. Subject, follow-up from last night. In the first line, he wrote, "Brooke, your vision for Clarity Core is inspiring. Would love to hear more about your product roadmap." I was CC'd, like a junior assistant. In the kitchen, I found Raj staring into the fridge. He looked up when I walked in. "Did you see the new press link?" "Yep," I said, then opened a LaCroix and leaned on the counter. Neither of us said what we were thinking. I told myself it didn't matter who shook hands or smiled into cameras, that what mattered were the lives Clarity Core touched. But that only works when everyone's honest about who built what. One afternoon, I passed 2 junior developers talking at the whiteboard. "Wait," one of them said. "I thought Brooke was the founder." I didn't interrupt. I just walked straight to the small conference room, closed the door, and sat in silence. That sentence hit harder than all the late nights combined. The following Monday, Brooke scheduled a meeting with a branding consultant and didn't invite me. I found out because the consultant walked up to me in the hallway afterward and said, "Great strategy session. Brooke said you'd finalize the app's messaging to match the new brand pillars." I nodded blankly. I hadn't even seen the new pillars. Later that day, I walked past the glassed-in huddle room where Brooke and 3 engineers were reviewing UI mock-ups. She was mid-sentence. "We've pivoted from the original intent. It's less about code now, more about user emotion." She didn't look up. No one called me in. Raj caught my eye as I passed. Just a flicker of hesitation in his gaze. A half-second pause in his sketching. It was enough. I left early that evening, walked 3 extra blocks just to breathe. The city smelled like hot pavement and Thai takeout. I bought a sandwich I didn't want and sat on a park bench watching people who weren't worried about brand pillars or title mix-ups. Just people walking dogs, jogging, holding hands. At home, I sat in my Craigslist desk chair and opened an old notebook, the one with the original Clarity Core sketches, before logos and leadership confusion. On one page, I had scribbled, "You don't need to be seen. You need to be useful." But now I wasn't even sure I was being either. I stared at my screen until the blur looked like noise. Then I opened the company's Slack channel, a new message in the Tar Press Highlights group. Brooke just crushed it on the health tech panel, so proud of our fearless leader. No mention of me, no tag. I didn't respond. I just closed the window and opened a blank text doc. I typed a single sentence and stared at it for a long time. First, they borrowed my mission. Then they rewrote my role. That was when my phone buzzed. A calendar invite. Title, lunch, Brooke plus mom plus dad. Location, Clarity Core office. Time, tomorrow at noon. No subject line, no context. Just a pop-up on my screen and a dull ache in my chest. There's something cruel about soft jazz at a dinner table. It trickles through the air like kindness. But tonight, it sounded like the calm before a storm. The roast beef was perfectly plated, the green beans aligned like soldiers. My mother had folded the napkins with her usual precision, edges sharp enough to slice. I caught the faintest scent of her rosewater hand lotion as she passed me the bread basket. Victor raised his glass. To legacy and growth. Brooke smiled across the table, eyes bright but unreadable. Her blazer was cream-colored, crisp, like she'd just stepped off a panel stage. She looked every bit the part, poised, polished, perfect. My fingers tightened around the stem of my wine glass. The last time they toasted Legacy, I was still debugging version 2 of Clarity Core in a hoodie that smelled like ramen and 3-day-old hope. I should have listened to Raj. His text had flashed on my phone just before dinner. "Call me after. Something's off." I'd almost replied. Almost. The conversation drifted from quarterly earnings to holiday plans. My mother asked if I'd considered hosting Thanksgiving at my place now that you have space, as if square footage equated to stability. Then, like an off-key note in a well-rehearsed melody, Victor reached beneath the table and pulled out a navy folder. He slid it between the potatoes and the green beans. "This," he said warmly, "is a plan we're all excited about. Something long-term." I stared at the folder. No one else moved. Even the air felt held in place. Elaine sipped her wine, eyes on the rim of her glass. Brooke leaned forward with a rehearsed smile. "It's time we play to our strengths. You've built something incredible, Jenna, and now we scale it." I opened the folder. "Dear friend, what would you do if you were in my shoes? I bet you can't guess what's coming next. But before we go any further, drop a 5 in the comments if you're still with me, because what happens next might just leave you speechless. Inside, a leadership restructure chart. Brooke's name sat neatly in the CEO box. Mine had been shifted down to CTO. Vision steward, it said in parentheses, like a museum role. Someone who dusts relics and tells tour groups what once was. The next page outlined voting shares, quietly moved into a family trust over the past year, transferred with legal language and parental signatures, without my knowledge, without my consent. The corporate attorney appeared via Zoom, square-faced and silent on an iPad propped awkwardly near the butter dish, just watching. I looked up. "You did this behind my back?" Elaine smiled gently, the way you smile at someone who's misread a weather forecast. "We supported your idea, but scaling requires experience." Victor added, "This protects your vision, sweetie. We're still a family company." That word, sweetie, landed harder than the folder. Brooke's tone was calm. "You'll still lead the tech team. That's where your passion lies, right?" I almost laughed. Almost, but the laugh never came. "The board approved this?" "It's all legal," she said. "We had to move quickly to stay competitive." I looked at her. My sister, the same girl who once skipped my college demo day because she had a sorority brunch, the same one who called my code magic gibberish when I first explained it, and yet here she was, in heels, at my table, with my title. I turned to my father. "You memorized the chapter," I said quietly. "I lived it." He blinked like he didn't understand, or didn't want to. I closed the folder, folded my napkin, stood. I need to think. No one stopped me, not even Brooke. At the door, I hesitated. For one heartbeat, I imagined flipping the table, scattering the green beans, upending the wine, cracking that perfect ceramic butter dish right in half. But that wasn't my style. Never was. I walked out, heart pounding but hands steady. The night air outside was cold and brisk, the kind of cold that found its way into your sleeves. I took the long way home, past shuttered storefronts and blinking traffic lights. I didn't cry. Not then. My apartment greeted me with silence. I dropped the folder on the kitchen table and stood for a long moment just staring at it. I thought of that old joke I made to Raj back when we still worked out of the Student Union Cafe. They'll have to drag me out of this chair. No one had to. The chair was gone, and I was standing. I walked to the window. Austin glittered below, unaware of my quiet fall from grace. I picked up my phone and called the only person who never needed a title to believe in me. "Raj," I said, "you still awake?" He picked up on the first ring. "You okay?" he asked, voice low and familiar. I didn't answer right away. I walked over to the folder again, lifted it, felt the weight of betrayal in 12 printed pages. My fingers lingered over Brooke's name on the chart, sharp and permanent like etched glass. "They gave me a new title," I said. "CEO." Raj paused. "But you founded it." Apparently, that's not enough anymore. He was quiet for a long second. "Do you want me to come over?" I sat down slowly, phone pressed to my cheek. "No, not yet. I just needed someone to know I'm still here." "You're more than here, Jenna," he said. "You built the bones. They're just dressing the skeleton." His words warmed something inside me, but I wasn't ready to thaw. Not yet. I glanced at the sticky note still taped to my wall above the monitor. The ink had faded slightly over time, but I knew every curve by heart. Build for the people who aren't in the room. Well, tonight I wasn't in the room, but I wasn't finished either. The living room no longer looked like a place to rest. It had become a war room. Screens glowed at odd angles. 2 on the coffee table, 1 mounted precariously above a stack of books. My whiteboard walls were covered in notes, diagrams, version logs. I'd swapped my favorite eucalyptus candle for a sharper scent, focus oil. It stung a little, but that was the point. No comfort, just clarity. They took the job I created, I muttered, typing fast. But they can't sell what they don't own. Raj's face filled the bottom right corner of the Zoom window. You ready for Catherine? I nodded. Catherine Liu's image popped up moments later. Sleek blazer, dark eyes, and a tone that never bothered with small talk. Jenna, let's talk about ownership. We didn't waste time. Yes, the core AI engine is technically unpatented, I said, but I can file a provisional now. The source code has unique neural weights and adaptive thresholds, and more importantly, I wrote the original seed logic. Anyone else contribute to that code? She asked. Not until version 1.3. Everything before that is mine. Version 1.3 is already archived separately. Catherine nodded. Then you file it. Under your name. I filed it that afternoon, alone. My name on the paperwork felt strange and powerful, like reclaiming something I didn't know had been taken. That night, I reheated leftover dumplings and opened the shareholder agreement I'd signed 4 years ago. I read it line by line, highlighting phrases like key personnel retention and material leadership change. They hadn't counted on me still being methodical. I drafted 8 personalized emails, 1 to each major hospital and medical group using Clarity Core. I kept it formal, but not cold. Due to a leadership restructuring at Clarity Core, I wanted to inform you directly. The founding architect and former CEO, myself, will no longer be overseeing implementation strategy. Please don't hesitate to reach out with any technical concerns. I hit send, one by one. By morning, 3 had replied. Not with questions, just simple, pointed responses. We signed with you, not your title. We'd like clarity on technical ownership. Please keep us updated on next steps. Next steps. That phrase lit a fuse. Across town, I imagined Brooke's inbox imploding. I didn't need to see it to feel it. The silence from Raj and the dev team, who had quietly stopped replying to her Slack messages, spoke volumes. Raj messaged me a screenshot. Brooke had tried to assign him 3 urgent tickets. He'd left them marked pending clarification. He didn't say more. He didn't have to. Later that week, Catherine called again. I have funding set aside, she said. It's contingent on you walking away from Clarity Core. You start clean, full autonomy. You name the next venture. I stared at the screen. And the IP? Anything you file under your name stays yours. You'll be the sole owner. It should have been easy. Say yes. Start over. But I wasn't angry. I wasn't chasing revenge. I wasn't even sure I wanted to build something new. Not yet. I glanced at the sticky note still on my fridge, curling at the edges. Build for the people who aren't in the room. I had. And now they were emailing me back. I stayed up that night annotating old architecture logs. Every commit was a breadcrumb, a record of choices only I understood. It was like reading a diary coded in Python. One entry caught my eye, dated October 3rd, 2016. Shifted error parsing to adaptive alert system for Grandma June. I hadn't thought of that note in years. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled. They don't know what this really is, I whispered. They think it's code. It's history. The apartment hummed with machines, and outside downtown Austin pulsed with nightlife. I used to think I was missing out. Now I knew I was building something louder. Raj texted at 1:12 a.m. Team's with you. Let me know if we go black on Slack. I replied with a simple thumbs up. We didn't need a speech. We never did. At 8:40 the next morning, my inbox pinged again. Catherine. She had attached a term sheet, 7 figures, full creative freedom, a startup incubator space already reserved under the name Project Reverie. She added a single line at the end. When you're ready. I didn't reply. Not because I wasn't tempted, but because I was calculating. This wasn't about blowing it up. It was about making them realize who lit the fuse. I walked to the kitchen and opened the fridge, not out of hunger, but habit. A lone container of hummus, half a cucumber, and 3 cans of cold brew stared back. I closed it again. The silence was no longer lonely. It was intentional, like the pause before the next move on a chessboard. I paced once across the room, then again. My hand brushed against the edge of the whiteboard, smudging a note. Fail fast, learn faster. I rewrote it in bolder ink. This wasn't failure. It was recalibration. When the boardroom email came in, subject line in all caps, I didn't feel dread, just precision. I was no longer the girl writing code in her sock drawer. I was the architect holding the map they forgot I owned, and I wasn't done drawing yet. The boardroom was just as I remembered it. Glass walls, glossy table, and the faint metallic scent of cold coffee left too long untouched. But the mood, that was new. Nobody smiled when I walked in. Brooke was already seated at the far end, blazer sharp, expression sharper. Victor and Elaine flanked her like statues, elegant, unreadable, and for once silent. The board members barely looked up from their tablets. Catherine Lau's face hovered on a wall-mounted screen behind them, her arms crossed, a silent sentinel. I didn't bother to sit right away. "Let's skip the pleasantries," I began, voice calm, even. "You wanted an emergency meeting. Here's why I agreed to show up." I pulled out a remote and clicked. The screen behind me lit up. Charts, numbers, timelines. Not emotion, leverage. "First slide," I said. "Client retention over the last 6 weeks." The numbers spoke louder than I could have. 92% of our top-tier clients had paused new features. 7 had directly contacted me for reassurance. 3 had already reviewed other platforms, only to find they'd been sold an illusion. Brooke's illusion. "Second slide," I continued. "Technical staffing allocation." A visual map of our engineering bandwidth. Nearly every senior developer was listed under unresponsive to current leadership. I let the silence do the talking. Then came the real hammer. "This," I said, pointing to a highlighted portion of the contract, "is the provisional patent I filed. The adaptive AI engine your product depends on now belongs to me, legally, completely." I saw a flicker in Brooke's jaw, but she didn't speak. Victor cleared his throat. "Jenna, no one's questioning your contributions." "You are," I said. "Every day you kept me out of this room, you did." Catherine leaned in on screen. "You should know, the company's valuation has dropped 40% since Jenna's removal was announced. Markets don't respond well to uncertainty, especially when it's tied to the brain of the operation." A murmur ran through the room. One of the board members looked at Brooke, another at Victor. Elaine kept her gaze firmly on her lap. I turned off the projector and folded my arms. "I'm not here to beg for my seat back," I said. "I'm offering you 2 paths. Path 1, reinstate me as CEO, full operational leadership with oversight guardrails. Path 2, I walk. The dev team walks. The IP leaves with me. You lose every anchor account by Q2. Silence, then whispers, then a motion from the legal counsel in the corner. Shall we call a vote? 10 minutes. That's how long it took. The final tally wasn't even close. When they handed me the paper confirming the board's decision, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt whole. Not because they chose me, but because I didn't need their approval to know who I was. Brooke stood abruptly. She didn't look at me, just gathered her things with the kind of grace you learn in private school etiquette classes and walked toward the exit, sunglasses on before the door had even closed. Victor opened his mouth, perhaps to explain. Elaine took a step forward, arms half extended. "Jenna," she said gently, "we just want what's best." I stepped back, not harsh, just certain. We already passed that point. Only one board member lingered behind as the others filed out. He looked younger than I remembered, though he probably wasn't. "We didn't realize you were the moat," he said. "We thought it was the tech." "It was both," I said, "but mostly it was time." The windows reflected the city behind me, Austin's skyline, dim but present, like a witness. I caught my reflection in the glass, not the tired 23-year-old from the studio apartment, but someone else now, someone they'd underestimated one too many times. I remembered the first time I'd pitched Clarity Core, standing alone with my hands shaking, voice barely louder than the click of the old projector. And now, I didn't need permission to speak. I had the data, the blueprint, the clients, the truth. Brooke hadn't spoken a word throughout the entire presentation. Her silence was strategic, but the board noticed. So did Catherine. And so did I. After the vote, I didn't gloat. I collected the decision paper and tucked it into my bag like any other document, because it wasn't the moment itself that mattered, it was what came next. Elaine still hovered, unsure. I remembered her rehearsed holiday smiles, the piano recitals, the silent comparisons between Brooke's speech trophies and my science fair medals. I met her eyes. "I know what you're trying to say," I said, but I already heard it in the silence before today. Outside the boardroom, the hallway felt strangely narrow. Brooke's heels echoed once, then faded. No goodbye, no closure. And maybe that was the closure. I stopped by the server room before I left the building. Habit. The hum of the machines was steady, grounding. These were the things I'd built with my own hands, not ideas in a deck, not pitches, systems. That worked. When I got home, I didn't pour a drink. I microwaved leftover dumplings, opened my laptop, and pulled up our original Clarity Core roadmap. There was still work to do, but now I got to decide what came next. I opened a new document. Title: Clarity Core reappoints founder Jenna Blake as CEO to lead global expansion. I clicked send. No speeches, no fanfare, just fact. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like enough. The stage lights were warmer than I expected. From behind the velvet curtain at the Health Tech Summit in San Francisco, I could hear the quiet hum of anticipation, laptops snapping shut, water glasses clinking, and the low thrum of industry power waiting to be impressed. In my pocket, I reached for something small and solid, Grandma June's bracelet. I had it resized last year, but it never left my side. Not during meetings, not during filings, not during the lonely hours coding in silence. That bracelet didn't sparkle. It didn't need to. Neither did I. Next up, the MC's voice boomed, founder and CEO of Clarity Core, Jenna Blake. Applause swelled, but I didn't walk out for them. I walked out for every nurse who'd ever juggled medications at 3 a.m., for every intern who coded past dinner, for Grandma June. Behind me, the screen pulsed to life. The June Protocol, intelligent safety for every patient. It wasn't flashy, it was real. As I spoke, detailing how we'd integrated adaptive AI into hospital systems across 3 states, with national rollout coming Q1, the room didn't blink, and when I finished, they stood. The summit reception afterward was a blur of handshakes and congratulations. Some faces I recognized from early rejections, VCs who once told me to loop Brooke in before they'd fund anything. Now they were pitching me. One man leaned in too close and said, "You've got the magic touch." I smiled tightly. "No, I've got data. That's what built this." At the buffet table, I ignored the shrimp cocktail and poured myself a ginger ale. Catherine was huddled with a legal associate, pointing at a graph on her phone. Raj had disappeared, probably outside, taking a well-deserved smoke break, though he never smoked. It was his excuse to be alone. Brooke hovered near the exit. For a moment, our eyes met. Her look wasn't resentful. It was something harder to define, like she saw the empire but knew she couldn't inherit the spirit that built it. We didn't wave. Victor and Elaine waited by the coffee table, holding lanyards they probably didn't need, trying to look useful. "We're proud of you," my dad said. I nodded. "Thanks for coming." Then I turned, not angry, not triumphant, just done waiting for their permission. That night, on the flight back to Austin, I took out a napkin and began sketching. A new idea, one that had nothing to do with proving anything to anyone. At takeoff, I closed my eyes and thought not of the applause or the deal Catherine just finalized, but of the hallway outside my old apartment, the one with the flickering light bulb I never reported, the one where Clarity Core first went live at 3:11 a.m. on a Tuesday. That version of me didn't have a title, but she had conviction, and that's what carried us here. The next morning, I walked into Clarity Core's new R&D hub, bigger, brighter, buzzing, the kind of place interns used to dream about from cramped dorm rooms. In the main hallway just outside my office, the bracelet sat in its display case under a soft light. A small plaque beneath it read, "For June, who made us pay closer attention." Raj passed by with 2 coffees. "Got a minute?" I shook my head gently. "In 10. He grinned. "Told you she'd never slow down." I closed the office door behind me. The room smelled of lavender and lemon, subtle, intentional. On the far wall, hung opposite a whiteboard filled with roadmap sketches, was a single-framed photo, me and Grandma June, taken in the garden 3 weeks before her scare. Her eyes were half closed from laughter. I remember thinking that day, I want to make the world safer for people like her. I still do. Some build empires for legacy. I built mine so no one would have to ask for permission again. And finally, I didn't have to either. As I opened my laptop, a message pinged. It was from a young founder. Just a few lines. "Saw your keynote. I'm building something like Clarity Core. Would love your advice. Maya." I smiled. My reply was short. "Bring coffee. I don't mentor for free anymore." I used to think the CEO title was the destination, but what I really needed was to stop asking permission to believe in myself. Grandma June's bracelet now sits behind glass, but what she passed down was never meant to be enclosed. Courage and unconditional love. You can lose a lot. Your role, people's support, even your family's trust. But if you hold on to the reason you started, you're never truly off course. In this life, they can take away the spotlight, but not the inner fire, if you protect it with gratitude and quiet strength. If this story reminded you of a moment you once lived through, big or small, feel free to share it. You never know who might need to hear that it's okay to begin again, and where are you watching from today? I'd love to know what part of the world you're in and whether this story stirred something in you. Drop a comment below and share your thoughts. You never know who might need to read your words.